future is now.
Broadcasting from the Queen City, breaking down business, leadership, community, and family. Here's your host, the president and CEO of the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, Erin Satzger.
The future is now.
So we are in downtown Cincinnati at the U.S. Cincinnati Regional Chamber today, and we are with Brendon Cull. He is the new president and CEO of the Chamber, and we are thrilled to be here.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad to have you here today. It's going to be an awesome weekend in Cincinnati. We are recording this on Taylor Swift weekend, and so maybe as we're talking, there's going to be hordes of people headed down to the merchandise bus.
Including us.
We're going there afterwards, yes, to get our teas. It's going to be a great weekend in downtown Cincinnati, but it's really a great weekend for the entire region. We have hotels from Westchester to Florence that are filled with people this weekend who are going to be part of the experience. Wow. And so it's a tremendous economic impact for our community. And so we're excited. I'm glad you're here this weekend.
I know. Yeah. It's going to be fun. Yeah. I'm going on Saturday. You're going to be there on Saturday.
I'm going to be there on Friday.
Oh, on Friday. Yep. That's the better day, I hear.
Yeah.
You know?
Friday, it's going to be good.
Going to be great.
Yeah. So you asked me about me. My quick story is I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Okay. I moved here to Cincinnati in 1995 to go to Xavier University and never really left. I spent a few years right out of college. I studied organizational communications, and I spent a few years out of college working for a small firm called Global Lead Management Consulting, which did diversity and inclusion training 25 years ago now for Procter & Gamble and The Limited and companies all over the world, founded by great living Cincinnatian Janet B. Reed. I did that for 2 years, but I had this interest in politics, and that motivates so many people at that particular age. And through a mentor at Xavier, got connected with Charlie Lucan, who was the mayor of Cincinnati at the time. And I spent 5 years working for Charlie when he was the mayor, from 2000 to 2005. And what was, I think, relevant to my own kind of life experience and career experience was a really pivotal moment in our city and region's history. It was the time of civil unrest over the Rhine after Timothy Thomas was killed. And it was a real moment where this community had to look itself hard in the eyes and in the mirror and decide how it wanted to move forward. Yeah. And so at the time, then it led to some pretty significant police community reforms that are the model for the nation. Both the FOP and community groups are proud of them to this day, 20 years later. It led to the creation of 3CDC and the resurgence of Over the Rhine as a destination neighborhood and now one of the best neighborhoods in the United States. So for me, it was being in the office and working with the media and the council and the business community, especially learning how we do things in this community and that you can't get big things done like the creation of 3CDC, like the expansion of the convention center without working very closely with the business community.
That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like you've been frankly training for this position. You know what I mean? Leading up to this point. And now you're here, and I was looking at census data, and I was actually really impressed with the last census, the 2020 census, showing that Cincinnati is indeed growing, and it's the first time in 70 years that it's seen growth via that census data. And I was really excited about that.
Yeah.
And just frankly looking at Hamilton County, Butler County, Warren County, Claremont, and Boone, again, all growing.
Yep.
And so what do you think about that? Because, I mean, that's great for our region.
You know, it's terrific. And it's, I'll bring it back to business for a minute because, after I left the mayor's office, I spent 10 years at Kroger, which is now one of the largest companies, largest employers in our region. And they are singularly focused on growth, growing their stores, growing their employees, making sure that they are continuing to serve. And that growth mentality actually, I think, applies to this entire region. The city itself is about 300,000 people in a region of 2.2-ish million people. Our chamber is the regional chamber represents Northern Kentucky, Southeast Indiana, and all of Southwest Ohio. So a 16-county MSA. But what we see when we compare ourselves to our peers is that we have a older city in the center, that lost a lot of population for decades and decades and decades and has now turned that around and is growing again. That signals very well for the entire region. So we have strong growth in Butler County, strong growth in Warren County, strong growth in our northern Kentucky counties. And now that Hamilton County is turning things around, the sky is wide open for us to be able to capitalize on that from an economic growth perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And frankly, what a great background to really learn about growth with Kroger.
Yeah.
Can I just say that my first job ever at 15 years old was bagging groceries and pushing. I was the cart girl at Kroger on Route 42 in Sharonville, Ohio.
Is that right?
So yeah. So I love Kroger. It was like a great training, right? And
it was awesome.
And that was a very, good first job.
My first. So other than a paper route, my first job was a bagger at the Big Bear, which was a grocery store in Columbus, Ohio, which is near where I grew up. And I have distinct memories of getting to know people as you took their groceries to their carts, which people don't really do anymore. But that was a thing. Like you would talk to people on the way out and get to know people. It was such a great
it really
community
was.
connector.
And you would be like, now I've learned that this person likes double bagged plastic outside of the paper.
Exactly.
And
those were the worst. No offense. If anyone's listening who likes the plastic on the paper, it's super hard.
It was a lot. It was a big combo.
Yes, exactly.
But no, that's great. I love that I feel like a lot of synergy with you on your background. It sounds like you have some good political experience as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think it helps bring people along to have that. Yeah,
it's tricky these days to talk about politics because I think our politics are so fractured that people say, "Oh, are you on that team or this team?" And what's really great is, when you work for a mayor, teams don't really matter. Because you're filling potholes on streets that have Democrats and potholes on streets that have Republicans. And the police don't ask your partisan identity when they knock on your door because you've called them because they need help, because you need help. And so that experience gave me a very much of a middle of the road. How do I serve people? And instinctively, that work with the city at the time taught me that business has such a role to play in shaping policy and direction for a community. And that, if there's one through line in my entire life, it's been how do we make sure that we connect business leaders to civic growth and civic initiatives that get things done. And that was true with SORTA, where we were able to expand transit in the community in a pretty major way. My first, in the last 7 years that I've been here at the Chamber, that was a big focus for us. But all that was about making sure that elected officials of both parties understood the business need for expansion of transit and funding of infrastructure, and then arriving on a solution that everybody could get behind and support. And so it's a community. And this is true for whether or not you live in downtown Cincinnati or Westchester or Amelia. Our focus has, in this community, one of our, I don't know if it's in our secret sauce or in our DNA, is that we get things done when we include business leaders and get business leaders to be generous, committed, thoughtful civic partners. We have an incredible tradition of that here. And that's how we will continue to win.
I think that's great. And I find that really in, anything in that community builder space, right? Is that you need the entrepreneurs to set the example, to give back to the community, whether that be through pushing just civic engagement or just community initiatives, or whether it's philanthropy.
Yep.
And I love that about the entrepreneurs in Cincinnati. We work with so many of them, and they are always, wanting to give back and do something for their neighbors. And I think it's such a generous, giving community. And I really find that we're blessed to be working in Cincinnati, both you and I. It's impressive. Yeah,
we were talking about individual people beforehand who we know who they show up at work every day. They're building a business there, and then when they go home, or even during the day, they're thinking about, what do I do to make this place better for the long run? And that's a hallmark of our community as well. Is it's this slow and steady growth. We're not a boom and a bust town. We're not a region that gets when there's an economic downturn, it's not as it hasn't been as difficult here as it has been in other parts of the country because we have a diverse economy and we have a generous, robust, dedicated business community that helps steer us through those sorts of things. And that's for people who are listening, you should know you live in a community that has those traits because it makes it better than so many places.
It does.
We talk about, we have a program called Leadership Cincinnati, and it attracts executives from all over the region. We have other leadership programs as well. And when I go talk to those groups, I talk about something called a community quotient. And we all know what an IQ is. Everyone knows that. And everyone knows what an EQ is. It's usually, somebody who has one and somebody who doesn't have an EQ.
Yes, you do.
With a community quotient or a CQ, we want leaders in Cincinnati who understand the community in which they operate, and they understand the nuance of living in Butler County versus living in Northern Hamilton County, and the differences in neighborhoods and how things work here. Those are the most successful leaders. And a big part of what we try to do here at the Chamber is make sure that we help business leaders fulfill that CQ and grow their CQ so that they can be fully committed to what the promise is of Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that's very impactful, and I haven't heard that terminology or verbiage, and it's really great. I think I know sometimes I can take that for granted, right? I've always been in this community service space and dialed into the needs, and you realize that maybe you're building your business and you're working really hard and you want to know how to help, but your CQ is not there, right? So that's great. The
best kind of leaders are the ones who, I always think about a CFO. You can have a brilliant CFO who knows the numbers in and out. You can advise a company on a merger like in their sleep. And they're a great manager and a great leader, and their team loves them. They have high IQ, high EQ. They will make better decisions if they are plugged into the community in which they operate, if they know what's happening outside the four walls of their business. And an organization like yours, like the one that I am fortunate to work for, part and parcel of what we do is about connecting people to what's happening here, so that they can find ways to, fulfill the mission of their business or their personal goals, those sorts of things. And that, I do think that is different than it is elsewhere because of our history, because of the kinds of people who live here, that this is a place where that works, and that will be our success metric over a long time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that, Cincinnati, it's like this small city. And I just, everyone says that, right? It's like you're talking and you're like, oh my gosh, such and such is my neighbor. Yeah. And I know this person or high school. Yeah. What high school did you go to, by the way?
Well, I was from Columbus. So I've never been able to answer
you claim Xavier. So this is
Xavier.
Good.
I say Xavier, but
I'm Mount Notre Dame. So,
Yeah. I know. So if we pushed pause, we would stop and talk about all the people that we know who went there.
I know.
There's, some people don't like the question. That question, the question is how people talk about it.
So
and increasingly, as we welcome people to Cincinnati from other places, and they are, I didn't go to high school here, so what do you expect me to say?
Yeah.
I can see why that's maybe a barrier question or something that is. But I think the reality is, what people are really trying to say is just tell me your story. They're looking for a way to connect to somebody. Yeah. And so if you assume that somebody is coming at it from good intent and that they're not going to immediately stereotype you and say, oh, you went to Lakota. I know people who went to Lakota and I know what that's like. I don't think most people do that. I think most people are just looking for a connection. Yeah. And that's something unique in Cincinnati too.
Right. They just want to know what neighborhood you grew up in. And do we know some of the people? And, and again, I think it is just tell me your story, even if you're from Columbus or Cleveland or Florida, wherever you're from. I think people just want to welcome you into Cincinnati, get you integrated and connected. And that's a great thing about Cincinnati.
That's the hope for always. I think it's as our community grows, that will be that will be harder to do which is okay. I mean, if you look at two cities like Nashville and Denver have had enormous growth,
so much growth,
and so the folks who have lived there for 40 years are still really important. They create culture and they're part of the history, but it's a community that just is so used to new people all of the time, and to their benefit. Their economy's grown, small businesses thrive. People flock there, kids stay there. And we've got to get to that mentality. That's a big focus of what we'll be talking about here at the Chamber is how do we get this to be a community that starts growing faster than we've been in the past.
I think that that's like a good focus, and that's something that anyone can get on board in Cincinnati in the business community, right?
Right.
So let's dive into a little bit kind of regional growth. We're the Northern Cincinnati Foundation. And obviously so many people are chamber members down here. And we kind of span from like that Madeira, Indian Hill area up north, Westchester, Liberty, Mason, Loveland, kind of that whole area all the way up to Middletown and Lebanon. And so there's like that growth corridor they talk about. What are your thoughts on that in the chamber? And like, what can we, for example, do to help lead that growth or initiatives we can take?
I think, super big perspective would be we all have to understand that we're in this together. And what happens in downtown Cincinnati, what happens in Florence or Alexandria, what happens in Sharonville matters to the other places. And so if there's a big job addition, if we had 500 jobs in Sharonville, not everybody's going to live in Sharonville. Some of those folks are going to live in Florence and be driving up. And so we have to start thinking about things. We have beautiful neighborhoods here that everyone's very proud of. We wear our neighborhoods with pride. But the ups and downs of this community, we're all tied together. Yeah. And that could not be more true in this particular moment. I think sometimes we get our heads, we're focused really hyper locally on our space that is around us. Thinking regionally is really going to be a success driver for us. So what we endeavor to do as the regional chamber is be as many places as possible. And so that means working with some of the, more geographic chambers, like my good friend Joe Hinson in Westchester. And, you think about all of the other, kind of smaller neighborhood centric or small municipality centric business organizations. How do we connect and think about a big regional wide growth strategy? Candace McGraw is our board chair. She runs the airport. People who fly in and out of CVG are all over this region. And so she's talking to everybody, and the economic growth that happens there affects everybody, whether you're within, 10 or 50 miles.
Right. Which is amazing. And frankly, like right now, this, when you think about even our sports teams, right?
Oh my gosh.
Right now, the Reds.
Yeah.
I mean, how many games have we won now?
It's awesome.
It's right amazing. Now. And then we have FC Cincinnati that's doing great. The Bengals are doing great. We've got Taylor Swift coming, and all of that matters.
It matters. And it matters as much as, great neighborhoods do in our suburbs. It matters as much as industrial parks do, where there's tons of jobs. All of that connectivity and that diversity within our region makes us strong. Interestingly, when I moved here in 95, I remember going to Dayton, and the drive between where I was at Xavier and Dayton, there was this period where you were just didn't feel like there was nothing going on. There were not even as many exits as there are now. Right. It's pretty much now a straight shot to Dayton where you feel like you're in a city or urban environment all the way.
You do. And you've got Austin Boulevard.
Exactly.
And, Franklin.
And more people
Middletown.
are living in Dayton and working here and vice versa. And so that's the other big key to us, I think, from a national perspective, is we've got to start thinking about ourselves as start at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, go all the way to CVG, and think about the size of that economy. We'd be the top 20 MSA in the country if we were thinking about ourselves the same, top 20 media market in the country if we thought ourselves the same way. And so we focus a lot on making sure that we're talking to Dayton, because we think our economic fortunes are tied together in a way. If we capitalize on it, we'd be able to grow in a big way. I
think it's a very high level strategy. And it's good benchmarking, right? Like regionally, to just be better.
Yeah.
I think if you're not benchmarking and working with, the other areas, I know for us as Northern Cincinnati Foundation, I enjoy benchmarking with Nancy Grayson in Northern Kentucky. And I think you all need each other because it just helps you grow and be better. So I'd love to hear that you guys are doing that and you're collaborating. And I find that so important in those community builder roles. And I kind of look to you as that, right? That you are. I mean, yes, it's the business community, but you're still making sure that this is a great region to live, work, and play in perpetuity.
That's right.
That's
the
goal.
Whole region.
Yes.
And think about, so we've spent a lot of time, this organization over the last almost 2 decades, focused on our singular biggest public policy project has been fixing the Brent Spence Bridge.
Tell me about this,
and it's
because
finally happening.
This is just amazing.
It's amazing.
I didn't think it would ever happen.
I didn't either. And I've spoken to elected officials going back 10 years about it, even in my time at Kroger, because it was so important from a commerce perspective. But just think about what that connects in our region and how up and down 75, that it's 3% of the nation's GDP goes through our region on that bridge. And the fact that we are going to invest almost $2 billion in fixing it and making this, an economic superhighway through our region is going to benefit everybody up and down 75, from, Austin Landing all the way down to Union, Kentucky. And and beyond, which is just amazing.
I remember when I worked in DC for Speaker Boehner, and this was, we were just attempting for so long, right? Everybody wanted this to happen. And just the economic impact of it, right? And
he knew he would see us coming. He knew exactly. You want to talk about the bridge? And we'd say, yes, we do. And he knew right away what to talk about. Yeah.
He sure did. And he didn't do earmark. So, the conversation wasn't long, but it's just so exciting. And everybody knew that this was something that needed to be accomplished. So, well, he got it. And frankly, leaders who have vision and foresight like him understood that bridge is not just a bridge, and what it will do to our economy. By the way, while it's being built, it's an enormous injection of economic benefit to our community, jobs, people shopping and doing all the things they do, buying supplies. But for the long term, it solidifies our place on one of the most important corridors in the country. And if you're a history dork like me, if a railroad was to move away from a community, or a highway was to move out of a community, that could be detrimental for forever. That was it. Yes.
And so the fact that we're investing in this and creating it as a throughway to boost our economy keeps us in a place where we have an opportunity to grow and capitalize on that for a long time to come.
In Cincinnati, Taylor Swift weekend, I've read a lot of articles on economic impacts. Can you tell me?
If you want to get your news out this weekend, just put Taylor Swift in the headline. It's going to get clicks. It's crazy. We did an economic report about the economic impact of Taylor Swift coming this weekend. By the time you hear this, it will have happened and will have been an incredible weekend. But we estimated that the economic impact of Taylor Swift is about $48 million of new money to our economy. There's money that will already be spent. Folks who generally go out during a weekend and do those sorts of things. This is new money. So
new money.
We're her only show in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So we got people coming from all over for this. I know people who are coming from coasts to come see her here. But what it does for the region, we're focused on the chamber. Our strategy that we'll launch at the beginning of next year is going to be focused on 3 things: growing the population, which we've talked about, growing the economy, which we've talked about, and then growing cultural vibrancy in our region. And look, Taylor Swift is like cultural vibrancy galore. And then, by the way, a month later, or not even a month later, we'll have the Cincinnati Music Festival here. It's the Snoop Dogg is the headline this year, if I remember correctly, at Paycor Stadium. That event has been going on for 30 or 40 years, I think. It's probably even longer. And it's the second largest festival of its kind in the country. The only one's bigger is the Essence Festival in New Orleans. And it's an incredible economic injection. I think it's $100 million economic impact, that event. Cincinnati Music Festival. People come from Baltimore and Chicago and all over the country to it. Those kinds of things that happen in Cincinnati put us on the map and make people want to be here. We don't look around. There's no mountains. There's no ocean, not nearby. Sure. But people will live in a place like this, and they will flock to a place like this if this is a place where they think things like this happen.
Fun things are happening.
It's why we do Blink. You talked about Blink.
Tell me about this. Yes, we sat down with Josh User. I don't know, a month ago, and it was an incredible story that he shared with us about Blink. So tell me about all the things that the chamber does that maybe sets it apart from other chambers and kind of initiatives and fun activities.
We lean into the culture of vibrancy. There are some chambers who do, policy. We do that. There are some chambers who do group buying power, health insurance, and workers' comp. We do that with Shakely as our workers' comp partner. We lean into that as well too. We also do cultural vibrancy, and so we run Oktoberfest, which is the largest Oktoberfest outside of Munich.
I go every year, by the way.
It's the best. Back on 5th Street this year. A little breaking news that we'll have it back on 5th Street.
I like 5th Street better.
5th Street's awesome. It'll be back on 5th. We do Taste of Cincinnati, which is the longest running culinary festival in the country. The Asian Food Fest, which this year was on Court Street and had an enormous crowd of Cincinnatians from all over the region.
People said the food was phenomenal.
Yes, and the Asian food community in Cincinnati is unparalleled. It's awesome. And many of the restaurants that were featured are small businesses that are all over the region. Somebody in Westchester, somebody in Kentucky, somebody all over. And they all come down here for Court Street. And then the crowd was phenomenal. So we lean into that. Blink, the first year we did Blink, I've been here for all three so far. And the first year we did it, our person who was in charge of marketing at the time was a guy by the name of Rich Wahlberg, who has since passed away. He was a dear friend and did you know Rich? Yeah. Westchester resident. Yes. His wife, Cindy, wonderful people. And Rich was in charge of marketing at the time, brilliant PR strategist. And somebody came up to Rich and said, "Do you think anybody's going to come?" Because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know if anyone would show up at Blink. And on that first night after the parade, there were so many people downtown that it was the police couldn't move. The roads were jammed up. People were walking around. Everyone took over the streets and walked around and saw art and culture. And it was this incredible experience. And Rich, all weekend long, he kept leaning over to me and goes, "Do you think anybody's going to come? Do you think anybody's going to come?" And we knew we had something special with Blink. And so it got bigger the next year, went over to Covington. This past time we did it, first one post-pandemic in 2022. It'll be back in 2024.
I'm already ready for it.
October of 2024.
So mesmerizing.
It'll be incredible.
And it's like something you can bring your kids to.
Yes.
It's for everybody.
The art, our executive director of Blink is named Justin Brookhart, and he went to Sydney, Australia this year to see Vivid, which is a similar event. The art and the installations that we have in Cincinnati, Ohio, that our whole region should be proud of and come see, was on par with or better than what he was seeing at Vivid. And that's in Sydney, Australia. It's a 20-year-old event.
That is honestly incredible.
Yeah.
And I just know that I'm always going to go, and I can only imagine the logistics of putting that on.
Yeah.
It's got to be so much.
It's tricky.
Yeah. I've put on some events, but this is
tricky.
High level.
That's right.
And a lot of moving parts I can only imagine.
Yeah,
so
it's really tricky.
I'm glad you guys are just doing all that for the city.
We do it. We've had great partnerships with the city, companies in town, Procter & Gamble and Kroger. And once you start listing, you get in trouble. But if there's a company in town that they helped us do Blink and make it happen. Arts Wave, which is a regional arts campaign funding organization. They're the illuminating sponsor. The Hale Foundation, which has been a community foundation that you probably know and have worked with, they are a big supporter of it as well too. And so all of us working together to be able to do things like that, I think it's great. It's great. Yeah,
I think it's really great. So let's talk about or dive a little bit into kind of strategy on growth. And you're talking about trying to get this to grow even more rapidly, right? I kind of look at that, frankly, as Northern Cincinnati Foundation. I mean, you guys are way ahead of where we are. But when you look at a business life cycle, right, we were founded, everything at that small business level when it gets started. And now we've grown a lot. We started as the Community Foundation of Westchester Liberty, and now we're the Northern Cincinnati Foundation, those northern regions. Yep. And we're continuing to grow on this growth trajectory. I kind of am using that as like an analogy for Cincinnati. I mean, just the fact that the census data is now great to see that we are growing. And so I guess what is your vision and like diving a little bit more into some strategy thoughts. And you're only 6 weeks in the job, so
yeah, I've been here 7 years, so I'm building on a tremendous foundation. I started as our chief operating officer and became chief strategy officer. Worked with Jill Meyer, who was our previous CEO, and she and I worked really closely on the last 2 strategies that we've been working on. We will explicitly focus on growth in this next strategy, so that not just our organization, but our community has a growth mindset about what we can be. I think sometimes we're hardest on ourselves here. And when people come, some of the best parts of my job are when people come here from out of town and they say, I can't believe what you have here. And how has the world not discovered how incredible this is a place to raise a family, or to start a small business, or to take a risk on a business growth opportunity?
Sure. To buy a house.
Yes. I mean, now we need more housing.
Aspect.
We need more housing because it's a challenge for us. But that's part about us being able to grow. So our focus will be on growing population that involves partnering with, in particular, local universities. I mean, think about UC, Miami, Xavier, Northern Kentucky, and a lot of the other universities in the region. The amount of people who come to those institutions from outside of Cincinnati, if we could get 5%, 10% more of them to stay here after they graduate and get a jobs, suddenly our growth trajectory looks really different, and it goes in the right direction, which, by the way, you don't want growth just for growth's sake. You want growth because it leads to opportunity for all of us. It's better schools and better housing and better, opportunity to create a small business, more things to do, more creativity. I swear this is true. We had a conversation with some chamber stakeholders and board members where growth meant for one individual a better dating life in our community. And that sounds like a funny thing, but
I believe
that's an important
I'd love to hear
thing.
That.
So you want this to be a place where people can come and meet people and realize that this is a place where they could have their life and have the kind of life that they want. We talk a lot about a future city, and it applies to the whole region. If you believe that you can create your future in a place like Cincinnati, Ohio, and all of the suburbs and exurbs and counties and towns around here, you'll stay. If you can see that future here, you'll stay. So a lot of our work around talent development is focused there. Business growth, it's about how do we work with any organization that wants to grow, whether it's Kroger, merging with Albertsons, which will be one of the most important economic events in our region's history. P&G's continued success, the airport having direct flights in and out of British Airways to London helps strengthen our connectivity to the world so businesses can thrive here. And then just most recently, Children's Hospital, obviously headquartered in Clifton on Burnett, but having a huge campus in Westchester, Liberty Township. Number 1 children's hospital in the United States of America.
Oh my gosh. When I saw that, I mean, just phenomenal. I know a lot of the team there at Children's. I'm sure you do as well at Cincinnati Children's. And I mean, I speak so highly of them. They literally saved my daughter's life, at the age of 4. And I just don't know that would have happened had we been somewhere else.
Yeah. If you're a parent, when you walk in there, you can, particularly if you've been through an experience like you've done, you immediately feel that you're in the presence of greatness. Everybody works there.
I just feel like I'll never worry about it again. I go, straight there, and I just trust the process there. It's like, I know that she's in the best hands, and if that issue arises again in the future, like we go there, and they have the A team. I call it the A team.
The A team, yeah. And think about what that does for our economy too. So from a growth perspective, the fact that everybody's worked so hard to get Children's to that spot, there will be more doctors who are recruited to this region who stay here because they want to work at Children's Hospital. There will be more research funding that helps spin off small businesses that grow into large businesses in the biohealth and health tech perspectives. All of that happens because of the attention and the work that the team at Children's has done so far. So that's all part of the critical growth strategy, making sure that the world understands that kind of economy exists here in our region.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love to hear people talking about strategic planning, by the way. I'm such just a passion for it.
Yeah.
Because I say without that, like, plan, how are you advancing at the end of the day? So it's good to hear that you are obviously strategy focused. I think you have to be.
Yeah.
Because otherwise there are so many directions you could go. And you need to have the whole team on board with the strategy, right? Like, we're going here and this is a 3 to 5 year plan. And so I commend you on that.
Yeah. Thank you. You're talking about organizations. Our organization, was founded in 1839. So I
did not know that.
Yeah. We can see the 200th anniversary ahead. So our next strategic plan will be a 5-year plan, and it'll have a 15-year outlook that gets us to that 200-year anniversary of this organization. And so we're thinking long-term about what we want this community to look like. And my message would be to any business person, whether you have your business in Westchester or in Sharonville or Madeira, or in Avondale or in Covington, getting engaged in the work that we're doing, whether it's around leadership, around building a more vibrant culture, around growing businesses and supporting small businesses by policy changes that make this a better place to open business, by focusing on policy that allows this to be a pro-growth community so that folks who want to come here and build houses can do it. That's the work that we're focused on, and it will make a better economy for all of us. That's our mission. That's what we're focused on.
I'm on board. I think it's great. I just want to thank you so much, by the way, for taking time, coming on What Gives. You obviously are going to do great things for our regional chamber. And just, I'm excited to be working with you and see you grow in the position.
Thanks, Erin. I'll say this.
Yeah.
Community foundations, cities and regions that have a healthy community foundation network and who help connect people to the missions that we're talking about. I feel like we could talk for 2 hours.
We could.
That is so crucial. And the generosity that businesses and individuals show by connecting with their community foundation to support these sorts of efforts and initiatives, it's a game changer for us. We have great history with it. And if we want to achieve that growth that we know will create more opportunity, it requires businesses and community foundations to be really locked arms working together. So thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree. And we'll make it a great weekend in Cincinnati. That's
right.
For sure.
That's right. See you down there.
Thank you.
To learn more about how to expand your philanthropy, please reach out to the Northern Cincinnati Foundation. What Gives is produced and distributed by King Hightower Strategies.